This video was sponsored by Squarespace. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. Just a few quick updates. I recently began a character design series over on my Gumroad channel. If you'd like to purchase that, you can do so at gumroad.com/moderndayjames. And from today until the end of the month, you can get 10% off when you use the discount code PRIMITIVE. I'll also be starting another semester of my mentorship beginning in July. If you'd like to sign up, you can head to brainstormschool.com, click the Mentorships tab, and then head to my Foundation Mentorship. There you'll find all the information you'll need for signing up and about the class. The reference I used for today's video is from GeoArtRef. The link is in the description if you'd like to purchase one of these reference packs. So let's get into the topic of today's video, painting primitive forms. In my last video, I mentioned 4 fundamentals of painting, which were shapes, values, edges, and color. We're still going to exclude color for now because we don't want to add an extra layer of difficulty on top of what we're already doing. We're going to be tackling some 3-dimensional primitives, which is going to test your ability to draw it in perspective. But when we switch to the painting phase, I want you to shift your focus from perspective to flat shapes of value. And if you're struggling with assigning values, I think today's video is going to help, as well as my video that I did on rendering primitives. In that video, I addressed the concepts of local value and the halfway to black rule. Just to quickly recap, an object's local value is the grayscale value it takes on under ambient light. The halfway to black rule estimates that an object's shadow planes should be roughly halfway between its local value and black. So a white cube with a local value of 0 will have a shadow side of 5, and a cube with a local value of 5 will have a shadow value of 7.5. What this also shows is that as local values get darker, the range of values you have to work within become increasingly limited. So let's start by drawing our cube. Once I draw in the cube and the cast shadow shape, I start the painting process by filling in the object's local value. There's a few tools I'm going to use in the painting process, and that's just going to be a square brush, the blender brush to get some soft edges and to blend values together, and the smudge tool. We're not going to have to tackle any soft edges here with the cube, but the background has a gradient in it, so I'll actually be using the blender and the smudge to accomplish that smooth transition of values. When it comes to maintaining your edges, you can use the lasso tool or even clipping masks to maintain those hard edges. I personally don't always use it because I don't want my edges to come off too digital or too clean. But again, art is very subjective, so figure out what process works for you. Another way to soften up edges while also introducing some interesting brushwork is to sample intermediate values and keep brushing in those midtones until you get a transition that appears smooth. And just to clarify, even though I was using some intermediate values for soft edges, I accomplished most of the painting by just using that limited palette of 4 values up above. For the cylinder, we'll proceed in the same exact manner. However, in this case, we'll have to tackle some soft edges within the primitive. While there's many other methodologies to painting, for the sake of this exercise, I'm just going to begin by blocking in the local value, and then I'll group the shadows together in one shape that has all hard edges. Then the remainder of the painting that I'll have to contend with is painting away that line drawing underneath and softening up those transitions in value. I think one of the issues that a lot of digital artists find themselves running into is making soft edges that don't appear too airbrushed or too fake. If you think about the traditional painting process, there would have been a lot of brushstrokes involved in getting that smooth transition from one value to the other. As I mentioned, we'll be studying brushwork in the following video, but for now that's the reason why I'm not just using a smooth airbrush to create these softer transitions. And here I'm using the lasso tool to maintain those silhouette edges on the cone. Once again, I'm using that hard-edged mid-tone to help transition my values before softening it up with the blender brush. And lastly, let's paint a sphere. Here's an example where I think using the lasso tool made it a little too digital and not so painterly. Grouping similar values can be a really helpful tactic for making a cohesive painting. More often than not, it looks better, and it's much easier for you to group your shadows together in masses than it is to try to capture the infinite range of values that there are. So for this group of primitive forms, what I'm going to do is begin again by sketching in the line drawing portion of it, place in my local values, and then I'll group my shadows together in one cohesive shadow mass using a singular value. As you can see, all we really need to identify form is just the object's local value and a shadow value. We can always introduce more values later on, but it's a very common strategy for painters to group their shadows together like this. We'll discuss this in a future video as well, but another technique that expert painters will use is to shift their value scales to favor either the highlights or shadows, depending on the quality of the scene. A well-lit scene may call for a higher resolution in the highlights, and the opposite for a darker scene. So for the well-lit scenario, you might use 4 values in the highlights and just a single value in the shadow. Again, the other component of this is to work on my edges. So now I can start to delineate between my hard, soft, and lost edges. We've seen the first two already, but the lost edge is going to be the one where two shapes are just going to collide and sort of blend into one another. And you're seeing this type of edge on the front face of the cylinder, which is just blending into the background. I introduced a second shadow value to demonstrate the occlusion shadows that are occurring between the junctions of the primitives and the primitives and the ground plane. And last but not least, we'll do a second set of primitives. The more you can start to see form as a collection of two-dimensional shapes of value, the more success you'll likely have with painting. This isn't to say that all the perspective drawing we've done so far is useless, just that we should try to tap into another part of our thought process when it comes to painting. Alright everybody, that's about it for this video. Try this out for yourselves and experiment with using different techniques for varying your edges. Remember that you don't need to use too many values, just a handful. I'll be uploading to the channel a bit more frequently, so stay tuned for another 3 videos this month. The follow-up to this video is going to be about brushwork and edges, and then we'll begin transitioning into color work. I'd also like to thank our sponsor Squarespace. If you're looking to build an online portfolio, consider using Squarespace. They have beautifully designed templates that have been crafted by Squarespace's world-class design team. Adding images into your website is as simple as dragging and dropping them from your desktop into your browser window. Any images hosted on Squarespace can be edited directly within your browser using Squarespace's built-in image editor. Crop, resize, rotate, adjust the brightness and contrast, and much more. Squarespace also makes it incredibly easy to pull in content from Twitter, Foursquare, Instagram, or Flickr directly into your page. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/moderndayjames to save 10% off on your first purchase. And be sure to use the coupon code MODERNDAYJAMES. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I know it wasn't the most sexy of video topics, but I just wanted to start from the basics and work our way up from there. If you enjoyed the video, remember to like and subscribe with notifications on, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by heading to patreon.com/moderndayjames. Alright everybody, thank you so much, and take care.